Hello, this is Cassie B, and this is the Whatever It Takes podcast. It's been a few weeks since I have done this podcast because I usually do it on Monday. It's not a written rule or anything, but I will usually do it on Monday, and I, for some reason, ended up missing one. So I didn't do it on Monday, and then I wanted to do it through the week, but I was just, sometimes you get too busy. So, and then I ended up missing another Monday, but that's why we're doing it on Wednesday, because I still want to do this. I still want to be able to kind of document how I'm doing in my weeks and my progress, and it just makes me feel good. It feels like one of those things that you enjoy doing and you like doing it, and it's fun, but it also feels like down the road it will, pay off in a way of I can look back on this and really, really see how I've been doing. Sometimes it's amazing to look back on life and just realize you're no longer in the place you were at. So that's kind of one of my intentions. There's a lot of things I'm starting to work on a lot of projects that I'll talk about, and I'm starting to, I just feel like I've improved a lot. A lot has changed since the last time that I did this recording, this podcast, and I want to work on this more. I don't really have too much time in my life right now, so that's why I was like, on Mondays I will do this. So, because it's easier to do something if it becomes a habit. I'm also not good at keeping habits, but I've been doing all right, other than missing a few weeks, which is okay. There's nothing that says you can't stop something then start it back up again, So, some of the things I've been doing since we last spoke 2 weeks ago is I feel like I'm really getting the hang of I guess I'm really being healthy lately. I'm really getting the hang of making all my meals and enjoying it. At some points in my life, I've had eating problems and disordered eating and, things like that. So I have a tendency to, for a long time, sometimes just, I didn't notice that I did this until this year, but I have a tendency to lose my appetite, and things that I would have eaten before, I just don't want to eat them. So so it makes it difficult to plan meals because, you can't always, for me, I have to make it different, each week, and that's normal, but it's hard when you're just cooking for yourself. You don't want things to go to waste. You don't want to have to buy more than you have to, and you also want to save your money because that's important, and a lot of people don't have a big budget to provide meals with, so it's really important to think about these things and plan ahead. I've been doing really good at planning making a grocery list and keeping to it and keeping to a budget and just making sure I eat, at least 3 meals a day, And sometimes people have health problems that they need to kind of change the way they eat. Instead of 3 meals a day, they would eat like 5 small meals and things like that. It's just kind of like figuring out what you need, and when a problem arises or a situation arises, being able to cope with that and being able to change the way you do things to provide yourself, what you need. So I feel like I've been doing really good at that. Yeah. So that feels good, and I really, really enjoy cooking. That's one of the career paths that I have kind of gone down, but I also want to go more into it. That's not what I'm doing right now for work, culinary. But I have in the past. I've been a prep cook, and I've worked in cafes, and I've done all these things, and I love it. I really do. But sometimes in life, it's really difficult to learn stuff sometimes when it has to do with like getting a job for it. I guess what I'm saying is that sometimes in life we have to come back around to things and slowly learn more about them to add them to like our resumes and stuff like that, taking classes, because a lot of the time we may want to go this way for work, but it's just a better opportunity going a different way. And that's kind of where I am right now. That, when you make a choice, it doesn't have to be forever. That's kind of what I mean, coming back around, and when you have more time doing this and doing that. Like, I can see myself getting a job, closer to the culinary field, like being a prep cook again, and I would also love to do waitressing. I've done stuff like that, but not that position necessarily. I would love to in the future, and I can see that happening. Like, life can be so long. It can also feel very short at times. What I mean by that is when we put pressure on ourselves, often life can feel like it's racing by because we're not doing what we wanted to do. We're struggling with our work-life balance. Things aren't really going how we wanted them to, and we're kind of stuck in that mindset that life is racing by us. There's nothing we can do about it. We just kind of have to, I guess we're kind of thinking things like, I have to do something. I never do anything, I never get anything done. I'm wasting time. I'm not living up to my potential. All these things that don't help us and make life feel like it's going so quickly. And then sometimes when we find some peace and a lot of those feelings are from having problems that we haven't dealt with, or that, not that we mean not to deal with them, but we've never been given an opportunity to really fix these problems. And for a lot of people, they don't know that the problems are there. And it's hard because there's so much more pressure and you don't know why. So, yeah, it's really hard. Yeah, we'll come back to that and talk about that later, all that stuff. But, yeah, it doesn't help putting pressure on yourself. I think it's important to find the coping mechanisms and, try to fix these problems. I think you have to kind of cope with things, because even if you think you fixed a problem, I think, for me at least, it's always there. The thoughts that you had before, if you have like separation anxiety and such like that, you still think back to those people who you don't see anymore. Your old friends, family that you were used to be close to. You still think about it. So it's really important, because those are problems that I don't think there's ever a real solution to. Like, you can't just forget about them. It's really about coping. It's about finding the things that make you wanting to go, maybe you're relaxing and you end up thinking about these thoughts that aren't very healthy. And to deal with that, instead of just, it's bedtime, instead of just sleeping, you end up going on your computer, and it's kind of an impulsive thing. It's kind of like, it's a bad habit, it's an addiction, and instead of getting a good night's sleep, you end up on the computer for 3 hours. You end up staying up all night, and it's the wrong thing, and you're not enjoying it. But it's just what you do. It's just what you're doing. It's a coping mechanism, but it's not a good one. Because in the end, you're going to be tired, and you're going to think about those thoughts more because you tried to avoid them. And you're going to end up doing that every time you have a problem. So I think it's really important to find good coping mechanisms. Maybe instead of going on your computer, you just kind of rethink your thoughts, or you meditate on them, or you meditate on the present, the moment you're in. And I feel like that can help a lot, because you don't want to end up like spiraling out of control. And when you have a bad habit or an addiction, because it is an addiction, if you're doing something, you don't enjoy it, but you continue to do it, and it's not adding to your life. In a lot of ways, it's taking away. So it's really important to try to minimize that. You don't always have to go cold turkey and try to get rid of it right away, because that's really stressful too. Sometimes when it's like internet addiction and stuff, it's like you start thinking of your life without this thing. Your mind goes to like extremes, and it starts thinking, I have to give up this thing altogether. I can't do that. I still like the internet. I still like watching videos. I know I have a problem, but I don't want to give it up. And you don't have to. A lot of the time, it's just minimizing the problem. I think in some ways that's healthy, in some ways maybe it's not. But I think, at least for me, if I go from being panicked and watching 8 hours of YouTube or something a day because I have anxiety and I'm panicked and I don't know what to do about it, if that goes from 8 hours to 2 hours consistently, you're not on it 8 hours anymore. You're only on it 2 hours. And you keep working down from 2 hours too, because you realize, once it's not 8 hours, you sometimes realize, I really don't really enjoy this, and I could be doing something else with my time. That's such an improvement. You just feel so much better. And I think changing a habit over time is sometimes more lasting. I've had a lot of times when I've had addictions and such, and I tried to do cold turkey. I tried to cut it all out at once, and it just didn't, it worked for a while, but your mind's still racing. Your mind's still saying, I can never do this again. I can never have this again. There's no moderation, and that's a problem. I think in our lives, the thing we crave the most is the things that make us feel safe. The things that make us feel like it's okay, and sometimes that's zoning out, and it doesn't really help, but in the moment it helps. It makes you feel like you don't have to be living the life you're living. And I think for a long time, when I was in some really bad situations, it was important that I did kind of zone out. But I didn't enjoy it. It was really hard because I had this addiction, but I also couldn't, do the things I wanted to because I wasn't in a safe space. I wasn't in a safe environment. I always had that pressure on me that, when you're not safe deep down, even if you don't want to admit it, your body kind of is always has so much anxiety. You're in fight and flight constantly because of the things that happen around you. And if you're in a situation like that, it's really like, it really feels like each day is like, I just have to get through this. I have to survive this. I have to make sure I'm not mentally in a space where I can, end up hurting myself. And I think it's important that sometimes if you're in a situation like that, you do just kind of zone out. You do just kind of go to what makes you happiest in the moment, what makes you feel not grounded, because in some ways you're still not very okay, but I think it's important to, every situation is different. I think, so, I think it's important to know that if you are in a bad situation, you can always eventually get out of it, for the most part. And that's kind of a broad thing to say. I don't really know how to, it's not going to be right away. Sometimes it's many, many years you have to keep working towards getting to a safe place. But when you do get to that safe place, it will feel like it's worth it. And it's hard. I don't know much about what to say to be encouraging in this situation. It's hard, but you can get through it. But it's gonna most likely take a long time. And there's times when there's nobody supporting you, and that makes it so difficult. But if you build up I don't know. Sometimes you're just gonna feel so terrible. This is awful. You're gonna feel so terrible. But you just have to take it one day at a time. I don't want to, be awful and not optimistic. But I don't want to sugarcoat it, too, because if you're in a bad situation, it's hard. It's so hard. And especially if for a long time, you didn't have a community. You didn't have people to really help you in any way. It is extremely hard. But I think it's important that if you're in a bad situation and you want to get out, it's important to build coping mechanisms or find a community or, yeah. Because any brightness you can bring to your life really helps in a lot of ways. It kind of, for me at least, it feels like I don't know. I can't say it splits the bad stuff in half, but it makes it a lot better. So I encourage you to never give up and to continue to look for ways to get out of the situation you're in. But to also, build a community in a way. Make some good friends. There's a lot of ways to do it nowadays. It's not easy, but yeah, if you have a resilience, you'll get through. Yeah. But it's not easy. So, yeah. Yeah, I don't want to make light of a bad situation because I think sometimes I think that people don't really, especially if people haven't been through the situation, and God bless them that they haven't. It's, somebody else's happiness isn't gonna take away from your pain, So it's great that people get to live lives like that, get to live lives. Everyone has sadness in their life, but yeah, it's good that people are loved by their family and get to, not feel that way. But sometimes it's when people are talking about bad experiences, talking about maybe bad home lives or neglect or things like that, they don't express, until you get out how bad things are, and I think it's good to acknowledge, because if somebody, when somebody tells you, oh, it's gonna be all right, it will be, but not soon. Sometimes it's not okay for a long time. And it's really important to, express that for the people who are in a bad situation, that, other people are in this situation too. And it's awful. It's not good. It's not okay. It's not okay to be, neglected. It's not good to be not thought about. And yeah, it's not gonna be okay right away, but it will be. Your life is valuable, and Yeah, I think that's an important thing to learn and to know that, you know, that you have value. You're not better than anybody else, but nobody else is better than you. You are great and you can always get better. So, that was kind of, yeah. I don't know really how I got onto this, but I think it was important. Yeah, so in my life, I am doing really well. I haven't always been, you know, until a few months ago, things were really bad. But I am doing the things I wanted to do, and I'm working really hard to achieve them. And yeah, I guess that's where I'll stop for today. It became a lot, very serious, and I think it needed to be. There's nothing wrong with having this type of conversation, but I don't feel right, you know, you know, continuing on when I think the message is, it's like this. I think it's good, and I think it's good to leave it like this. Thank you so much.